I have a vision, my next poem, a vision of an officers' club at a place called Aldershot, the largest military base in all of England, where they do war games they call penny fights. And when they do the penny fight by the book, they say they Aldershot it. Above the bar, a picture of Queen Victoria, dark-skinned porter serving beverages, mostly gin and beer, to the officers. One of the officers begins to extol the virtues of a particular dark-skinned porter, what a smashing job he's doing with the gin and beer, when another officer begins to reminisce about a different dark-skinned porter at a different time, a different place, under different circumstances, serving a different beverage. And as he reminisces, he says, and I desperately hope that I quote, "You may talk of gin and beer when you're quartered safe out here and sent to penny fights and Aldershot it. But when it comes to slaughter, you'll do your work on water and you'll lick the bloomin' boots of him that's got it." Now in India's sunny clime, where I used to spend my time, a servant of Her Majesty the Queen, of all them black-faced crew, the finest man I knew was our regimental beastie, Gunga Din. He was din, you limping lump of brick dust, Gunga Din. Hi, slippery hither all water. Get it, panny low, you squidgy-nosed old idol, Gunga Din. Well, the uniform he wore was nothing much before, and rather less than half of that behind. For a piece of twisty rag and a goatskin water bag were all the field equipment he could find. And when the sweatin' troop train lay in the siding through the day and the heat would make your bloomin' eyebrows crawl, we shouted, "Harry by," till our throats were bricky dry. Then we whopped him, 'cause he couldn't serve us all. It was, "Din, ye heathen, where the mischief have you been? You put some jewelry in it, or I'll marrow you this minute if you don't fill up my helmet, Gunga Din." Well, he would dot and carry one till the longest day was done. He didn't seem to know the use of fear. If we charged or broke or cut, you could bet your bloomin' nut he'd be waiting 50 paces right flank rear. With his mussick on his back, he would skip with our attack and watch us till the bugles made retire. And for all his filthy eyed, he was white, clear white inside when he went to tend the wounded under fire. It was din, with the bullets kicking dust spots on the green when the cartridges ran out. You could hear the front rank shout, "Hi, ammunition mules and Gunga Din." Well, I shan't forget the night I fell behind the fight with a bullet where my belt plate should have been. I was choking mad with thirst. The man that spied me first was our good old grinning, grunting Gunga Din. He lifted up me head and he plugged me where I bled, and he guv me half a pint of water green. It was crawling and it stunk, but of all the drinks I've drunk, I'm gratefulest to one from Gunga Din. It was din. Here's a beggar with a bullet through his spleen. He's chawing up the ground and kicking all around. For God's sake, get the water, Gunga Din. Well, he carried me away to where a dooley lay, and a bullet come and drilled the beggar clean. He put me safe inside, and just before he died, "I hope you like your drink," says Gunga Din. So I'll meet him later on at the place where he is gone, where it's always double drill and no canteen. He'll be squatting on the coals, giving drinks to poor damned souls, and I'll get a swig and ale from Gunga Din. Yes, din, you Lazarusian leather, Gunga Din, though I've belted you and flayed you, by the living God that made you, you're a better man than I am, Gunga Din. Anyway, had to change my outfit since we've left Kipling temporarily. We'll be back to him. but the next few poems are by Robert Service and generally about the Yukon Territory and the Alaska Gold Rush. So I have a vision of a different kind of officers' club, a saloon, in fact, during the Alaska Gold Rush. There is a shootout. 2 men are killed. 1 man is robbed of his gold. Territorial prosecutor trying to get to the bottom of the case. Star witness is the bartender. The prosecutor says to the bartender, "Mr. Bartender, would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury in this honorable court exactly what happened on the night of January 15th, 1898? And the bartender said, and I desperately hope that I quote, he didn't say, "You may talk of gin and beer." That was over at Aldershot. He said, "A bunch of the boys were whooping it up in the Malamute Saloon. The kid who handles the music box was hitting a jagtime tune. In back of the bar in a solo game sat dangerous Dan Mcgrew. And watching his luck was his light of love, the lady that's known as Lou. When out of the night there was 60 below, and into the din and the glare they stumbled a miner fresh from the creeks, dog dirty and loaded for bear. He looked like a man with a foot in the grave and scarcely the strength of a louse, but he tilted a poke of dust on the bar and he called for drinks for the house. Now none could place the stranger's face, though we searched ourselves for a clue, but we drank his health, and the last to drink was dangerous Dan Mcgrew. Well, there's some men that just grip your eyes and hold them hard like a spell, and such was he, and he looked to me like a man who had lived in hell, with the face most hair and a dreary stare of a dog whose day is done. He watered the green stuff in his glass, and the drops fell one by one. Then I got to figuring who he was and wondering what he'd do, and I turned my head, and there watching him was the lady that's known as Lou. Now his eyes went rubbering around the room. He seemed in a kind of a daze till suddenly, that old piano fell in the way of his wandering gaze. Ragtime Kid was having a drink. There was no one else on the stool, so the stranger stumbled across the room and he flopped down there like a fool. In a buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt, he sat and I watched him sway. Then he clutched those keys with his talon hands. My God, but that man could play. Have you ever been out in the great alone when the moon was awful clear and the mountains hemmed you in with a silence you most could hear, with only the howl of a timber wolf? You camped out there in the cold, a half-dead thing in a stark dead world, clean mad for the muck called gold. While high overhead, green, yellow, and red, the north lights swept in bars. Then you've a hunch what the music meant, hunger and night and the stars. And hunger not of a belly kind that's banished with bacon and beans, but the gnawing hunger of lonesome men for a home and all that it means. For a fireside far from the cares that are, 4 walls and a roof above, and oh so crammed full of cozy joy, and crowned with a woman's love. A woman dearer than all the world, and truer than heaven is true. God, how ghastly she looks through her rouge, the lady that's known as Lou. Then on a sudden the music changed, so soft you scarce could hear, and you felt your life had been looted clean of all that it once held dear. That someone had stolen the woman you loved, that her love was a devil's lie, that your guts were gone, and the best for you, the very best for you, was to crawl away and die. It was a crowning cry of a heart's despair, and it thrilled you through and through. I guess I'll make it a spread misery, said dangerous Dan Mcgrew. Well, the music almost died away. Then it burst like a pent-up flood, and it seemed to say, repay, repay. My eyes were blind with blood. The thought came back of an ancient wrong, and it stung like a frozen lash, and the lust awoke to kill, and the music stopped with a crash. The stranger turned, and his eyes they burned in a most peculiar way. In a buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt, he sat, and I watched him sway. Then his lips went in a kind of a grin, and he spoke, and his words were calm. And boy, says he, you don't know me, none of you give a damn. But I want to state, and my words are straight, and I'll bet my poke they're true, that one of you is a hound of hell, and that mother is Dan Mcgrew. Well, I ducked my head. The lights went out. 2 guns blazed in the dark. A woman screamed, and the lights came up, and two men lay stiff and stark. Pitched on his head and pumped full of lead was dangerous Dan Mcgrew, while the man from the creeks lay clutched to the breast of the lady that's known as Lou. Well, these are the simple facts of the case, and I guess I ought to know. They say the stranger was crazed on hooch, and I ain't denying that so. I'm not so wise as the lawyer guys, but strictly between us two, the woman who kissed his cheek and pinched his poke is the lady that's known as Lou.